There are 10 easy things that you can do to make your online session really valuable. It takes time to attend an online learning session, so it makes sense to make it work for you. You may or may not be the sort of student who talks a lot in a seminar, in a lesson, in a tutorial, but online you have two options in how you speak. You can speak out, or you can use the chat function, whatever that's called, on the platform you're using. So it's much easier to get involved. If you're hesitant about turning your mic or your camera on, you do have the ability just to type in questions or thoughts and comments, and whoever's leading the session will be very adept at picking up on what you're saying by typing rather than by speaking. So it's really easy to get properly involved in online learning sessions. But don't forget, you can turn off your microphone and your camera when you're not talking. In fact, very often the etiquette of a session will be you're asked to turn your mic and camera off before you come into a session. The hands up function, which is available in lots of different platforms, is great because it allows you to sit there using the hand up function and wait to be asked to talk. But it can be embarrassing if sometime later somebody has to remind you you've still got your hand up. So just get into the habit, when you finish saying what you want to, of lowering your hand virtually, just as you raised it virtually. There are some learning sessions where you're not going to expect to take loads of notes. You think it's something where you might want to just jot down the odd note. You may have some sticky notes or something like sticky notes on your computer. This is an app that looks on your screen as if it were a post-it note, a sticky note, and it allows you just to type some quick notes in. It can be a really nice way to take the pressure off yourself. You're not making a whole set of formal notes. Instead, you're just jotting down notes quickly, and by putting them on the screen, it allows you very easily just to delete the sticky note when you've thought about whether those notes need to go anywhere else. So it's a really efficient way of making sure you don't get bogged down with information during an online learning session. You also need to think generally about how you make notes. Do you tend to make notes by hand? Would you rather write them out, or would you rather type them? You wouldn't necessarily have thought about this when you're in the real world, because you may be used to taking pen, pencil and paper in to a room, but now you have the option of typing because you're on screen. You might want to think about whether that might work better for you. You also need to think about what you're going to do with your notes. This is going to take a little bit more thinking about. For example, you could use OneNote, which is an app that's widely available through Microsoft, and it allows you to organise all of your material in one place. It works in a system of notebooks and pages, so you might have a virtual notebook for one module, for example, and open a new page every time you go into a new learning session on that module or on that course. It's a great way to get organised. So if you're not sure about OneNote, there are some great tutorials online and they're really quick. It's very intuitive, and it may be, in fact, that whoever's teaching you online is teaching you through OneNote. So you may find you have a class OneNote notebook and you're already using that anyway. You may have questions that you want to ask in advance, so it's quite useful to have sticky notes up, for example, just to jot some questions down. And as you go through, rather than feeling, oh, I keep interrupting, I'm not sure if I'm ruining the flow, or if you find a lot of people are interrupting and chatting, just note down questions on sticky notes or on a piece of paper. And then if you start to think at the end, we're going to run out of time, I'm not going to get my question in the time that's allowed for this learning session, that's fine. Just type them into the chat function. Because even if whoever's leading the session doesn't get time to come back to you during the session, the chances are they will come back to that chat function at the end of the session. If you lose the thread of what's being said, particularly if then you're asked to contribute, don't worry about it. Everybody does it from time to time, and it seems to be quite normal, I've noticed, in online sessions, just to say, sorry, I was thinking of something else, or somebody was at the door, or I went to go drink, whatever it is, and people to repeat themselves. It doesn't seem to be a problem. And if you do get disturbed and there is a chat function, just looking back is a really good way to see where the chat's gone and how the session is going. If you're going to watch something that's pre-recorded, so it's not a live online session, make sure you give yourself regular breaks. So if you see an hour's worth of recording, don't try and tackle it at once, it'll be exhausting. So force yourself to think, I'm going to look at a quarter of an hour and stop and just look away from the screen, take time, think about what's been said. What you'll find is that if you do that, you'll have far fewer notes because you've got your head together again and you're back into the zone of learning. And so rather than having too many notes and having to go back after the lecture to condense or organise them, you're doing that work during the lecture. Much easier way to work and much more effective. And finally, be ready to have lots of tabs open. So you will have obviously the tab open of the online learning space. There may have been links put into the chat. So it may be that you'll want to go to those links during the session. It may be that you're asked to look at other things. So maybe from your reading list to have some online material up. So be ready to have quite a busy screen whilst you're going on. And don't forget to keep your phone nearby. You probably did that already, but you won't always be warned when somebody's saying, could you please go to Padlet or any other online voting system so you can express a thought, or you can have a quick vote on something online. So make sure you've got your phone near you as well. So hopefully, as you go through and get more used to online learning, you'll be able to come back to these and just tick off as you get into the habit of doing all these 10 things during your online learning session.